Welcome everyone. It's wonderful to see so many at today's Zoom presentation. I'm your host, Susan Huntley, and on behalf of the Calgary Buddhist Temple Sangha Engagement, I'd like to welcome you to this mindful meditation workshop. To begin, can I please ask you to join me by putting your hands together in Gasho, my Ojuzu, so that we can quiet our minds and reverently show our appreciation for this wonderful opportunity that brings us together. Please repeat after me. Namo Amida Butsu.
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 Thank you. So, for this mindful meditation workshop, it's my pleasure to be able to introduce you all to the presenter, Ray Nakano. Ray is a retired third-generation Japanese-Canadian born and raised in Hamilton, Ontario, along with his 4 younger sisters. He resides in Toronto, where he worked for the Ontario government for 28 years. In June of this year, we were lucky to have Ray present an insightful talk to our group on climate change from a Buddhist perspective, and he raised our awareness of the current climate crisis. Ray is a member of the Order of Interbeing. He was ordained by Thich Nhat Hanh in October 2011. As part of this ceremony, he took a vow to follow the 14 mindfulness trainings. One of his duties as an OI member is to start, build, and support sanghas. He is involved with 3 sanghas currently, 2 which he started in 2015. One's in Toronto and one in Hamilton. The 3rd one was started by his in-laws, who are both Vietnamese. His father-in-law passed away 9 years ago, and you'll see Ray wears his jacket today. I have truly been looking forward to today's mindful meditation workshop, so I'm very happy to now let Ray take over and share his presentation with us. Thanks, Ray.
Thanks, Susan. The jacket is actually off. It's behind me in my chair. It's a little bit warm here. It's about 24 degrees, I think, here in Toronto. So welcome to this mindfulness meditation workshop. I have a set of slides, which I'm going to go to right now. Well, momentarily. I just doing some lookups. So, okay, here we go. Right, so here's an outline of the workshop for today. Depending on how my presentation portion goes, it'd be 30 to 35 minutes, and we hope to have about 20-25 minutes for the Q&A portion. So first I'm going to start with a land acknowledgement. So I am coming to you from Toronto. I acknowledge the land that I am meeting you on is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabeg, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples. And it's now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit. And there's a note here, but I'll just skip by that. Some housekeeping. The presentation is being recorded. A copy of the slides will be made available to those who have registered for the webcast, because we have your email IDs. And if you have a question as I'm going along, put it in the chat, and we'll try to cover them in the Q&A portion. Continuing, let's see. Okay, so we're actually going to start with a guided sitting meditation. So hopefully you're sitting down and you're sitting in a comfortable chair or cushion. So I'm going to invite the bell to start. And we do this to really signify like different portions of our meditation session. So close your eyes to start and sit upright. Your shoulders relaxed and balanced. So you can kind of lean to the left and the right, but you want to be balanced, particularly leaning forward or backward. We tend to lean forward So try to sit with your head balanced on your shoulders, neither left nor right, forward or backward. And then just relax and calm yourself. Perhaps you've been rushing around. And breathe. So just breathe in and breathe out. And if you are relaxing, your breathing should start to slow down and start to deepen. And the other thing to do is to smile. So it just relaxes our face if we can smile. So I want you to become aware of your body, what you're sitting on, how you're feeling, what your emotions are right now in this moment, and your thoughts. But your focus is on your breathing. So as you breathe in and as you breathe out, so let your thoughts just float away. Don't chase after them, but come back to your breath. And your mind will wander away, tend to wander with its thoughts. But if you realize that that's what's happening, then just bring it back to your breath and focus on that. And there is a reason why we focus on our breathing at this time. So at the same time, we want to be aware of our surroundings. The sounds we hear. Perhaps we can feel something on our skin. What we're sitting on. And if you're uncomfortable sitting where you are, just move around quietly and find a more comfortable position. And we can place our hands on our knees. You can fold them in our lap. But we just want to be relaxed and focusing on our breathing. So you can say a little gatha to yourself. You can just say in as you breathe in and out as you breathe out. So we'll just sit this way for a couple of minutes, and when I invite the bell, we'll stop. So please open your eyes. You can stretch your arms and legs. I'm actually going to stop the share and go to gallery mode. Okay, so this is actually the part of the program where I just want to do some introduction so that we can see where you're from. And I usually ask a question, and we do the introductions in our usual meditation sessions. But I'll call out your name, and you can turn your video on or not, depending just what you're comfortable with. But if you can tell us what made you smile today, So we can, I guess we really can see yourselves anyway, but you can introduce yourself and just say what made you smile today. And that is if you did smile. I once had somebody tell me that they didn't smile today. So that was a little bit different. Anyways, I'll just call out your name then, and we'll just do it that way. So we'll start with Trevor.
Hello there. Glad to be with you. I would say that the thing that made me smile today was getting into my backyard where it's nice and warm here in Calgary and doing some yoga. It's just fantastic before this, so it's a very peaceful day, I guess you could say, for me.
Okay, thank you, Trevor. And right off the bat, I forgot a practice that we do when we share, and not your fault, Trevor, my fault, but we say, I would say Ray bowing in, and then we would share, and then when we're finished, we do the same thing, Ray bowing out. And that indicates that we're going to say something, and then also we finished saying something. So next, Susan.
Hi, I'm Susan. Whoops, I thought I put my video back on. There. Am I on? I can't see myself anymore.
You're on.
And I'm from Calgary. And something that made me smile today was I got to see my grandkids. So it was a great day.
That's great. So just say bowing out. Okay. Thanks. I know it's new. Margaret. Margaret.
Am I there? Oh, there we go.
Yes,
okay.
I can hear you.
Margaret bowing in. I apologize for lack of video, but I have very poor internet connection at my house and it doesn't allow for video. So you just have to imagine. One thing that made me smile today was a bit of a little joke where I was introduced to someone that I know very well. So we had a good laugh about that and a smile. Somebody didn't realize I knew him. So I said, have you ever met David before? And of course, we pretended to just be meeting for the first time when we knew each other for several years now. So anyways, Margaret bowing out from Lethbridge.
Thank you. And Allison and Elise.
Hello. So I'm Allison and I am bowing. I am in Calgary here with Elise. She'll introduce herself in a minute. But what made me smile today, I went to a Pilates class, and on my way there were these cute little ducks, and the way that they were swimming and how they could hold their breath. I don't know. I just found it very fascinating. I was like, man, I wish I could hold my breath that long. So that's probably my thing, and bowing out.
Hi, I'm Elise, bowing in. The thing that made me smile today was seeing my friend Allison. I haven't seen her for a little while. So she invited me over to do this. So something different for myself. So that made me smile.
Oh, great. Thank you. Brienne.
Hello, it's Brienne bowing in. I'm here in Calgary also. And something that made me smile today was taking time to spend with my pets and enjoy the nice sunshine outside and relax. Bowing out.
Okay, sounds good. Sheila.
Hi, Sheila bowing in. Today was our first temple service after the summer break. And it was wonderful to see how many members of the Sangha attended in person, and that made me smile. So Sheila bowing out.
Thank you. Brienne.
Did you want me to go again?
Oh, sorry. Things are shifting.
That's okay. I smile a lot. It's fine.
Okay. We'll go to Gail. Sorry. Gail, you're muted yet. Okay.
Sorry, Gail wrote her response in the chat because she was having trouble with her mic.
Okay.
So Gail bowing in from Calgary. She said, my dog brings a smile just being and exploring her surroundings. like it's a new experience every time, like simple magic. Gail bowing out.
Thank you. Victor.
This is Victor from Calgary, bowing in. What made me smile today was talking to my wife. Yeah, bowing out.
Thank you. Heidi. Heidi, you're okay.
Hi there, bowing in from Okotoks. What made me smile today? I'm just able to go outside, smell the fresh air, see the flowers are still growing, actually. Just enjoy the outdoors. Bowing out.
Great, thank you. Cynthia. Cynthia, are you muted? Okay. Okay, we'll move along to Denise.
Hi, this is Denise from Calgary, bowing in. What made me smile today is my brother and I were sharing, old pictures and funny videos of each other in family events. We're just putting together a collage for my dad, and yeah, I had a lot of good laughs today and a lot of good smiles. So it was good.
That's
Bowing
good.
up.
Masai.
Good afternoon, bowing in. I've had very similar experiences with many of the others, enjoying the beautiful sun that we have today and the blue sky, and also the same. I also was going through old photos for a former colleague who is retired, and I was asked if I had any old photos that I could help them with. And so I was having a really good chuckle over pictures from the past. Bowing out.
Thank you. Elaine. Oh, you're muted, Elaine.
Elaine, bowing in from the Crow's Nest Pass. I have sunflowers and hollyhocks in my garden, and they make me smile. And every time I look at the hollyhocks, they especially remind me of my father and my grandmother. That was their favorite flowers. Elaine, bowing out.
Thank you. Now the squares keep shifting. Denise?
I already went, if you'd like
sorry.
another one. It's okay.
Patrick.
Hi, this is Patrick from Calgary, bowing in. Just a sunny, warm morning, and having a nice breakfast this morning. Thank you.
Thank you. And Brianna?
I already went.
Oh, okay. Sorry, my squares keep shifting, so I guess whenever somebody turns their video on, it just starts moving around. So, okay, so let me go back to my, actually, I did have a question for the group. And the question was, who here is experiencing stress? Now, I don't know how you can show that. Oh, maybe you can use the question button and raise your hand if you know how to do that. Okay, I see one. Oh, that's pretty good. Oh, I see two. I see three. Four. I see a thumb, but okay. I'm gonna raise my hand too. Okay, so we're almost at everybody. Okay, I get the message. Okay, how many of you are experiencing negative stress, like unhealthy stress? I'm gonna put my hand up too, actually. Okay. All right, so that's about 50-50. Okay, that just gives me some understanding of where we're sitting with this. So I'm gonna go back to my slides. Thank you. Okay, here we go. Okay, so we've done introductions. So my Dharma talk. So my question was, who's experiencing stress, and whether it's healthy stress or unhealthy stress? So healthy meaning, oh, I guess I should spotlight myself. Sorry, there we go. Okay. So healthy stress meaning that you are able to deal with it in a productive, positive positive outcome. And unhealthy stress meaning that it's unproductive, a negative outcome. So today I'm going to talk about how you can deal with your stress. So question. So what is your purpose in life? That may be the biggest question that you may have, or it may not be, but I'm going to answer it anyway. According to Buddhism, the purpose of life is to create joy and happiness for yourself and others, and to relieve suffering for yourself and others. And I should say that this is sustainable joy and happiness and sustainable relief of suffering, because you could take drugs, you could get yourself high, you could drink alcohol and drink yourself into a stupor, but in the longer term, that's not sustainable. And at some point, you'll be faced with either ill health or perhaps even death. In a lot of situations, we run away from our problems, our suffering, or hide from them or ignore them. We deny that we have a problem and bury it by binge watching Netflix, shopping endlessly, buying the latest smartphone, perhaps even meditating for an hour at a time, all without seeking a solution to resolve our suffering. So you can actually be doing meditation, but you're not really relieving your suffering. So what causes our suffering? It's caused by 3 poisons: ignorance, attachment, and aversion. Ignorance would be not knowing about your problem or not knowing how to deal with it. Attachment would be craving, desiring material things, people, fame, fortune, power. That has become the goal of your life. Aversion includes anger, jealousy, envy, hate, usually because we cannot get what we want or someone else has something that we want. And so that it means that there's a desired outcome that's not within our grasp. So we talk about 3 types of suffering, or dukkha. Suffering in everyday life, changing circumstances, and samsara. Samsara in Thich Nhat Hanh teachings is the endless cycle of suffering. So everyday life would be somebody cuts you off in traffic, or somebody jumps ahead of you in a waiting line. Changing circumstances would be a death in the family. Someone who's gotten very sick, has developed cancer. Samsara is a bit more complicated. Samsara would be your father abused you as a child. So, and you find that your own behavior, you're abusing your own children, and it's kind of related to what your father did to you. So how do we deal with these? So in our practice, we talk about letting go. So when you have situations where somebody cuts you off in traffic, somebody jumps ahead of you in a queue, in a line, we just let it go. Like, why should we let it spoil the rest of your day by, being concerned about that? Being like, why did that person do that, and why did he cut me off? So we just let it go, and it's actually a practice of letting go. The 5 remembrances, and the monastics will recite this every day, usually for changing circumstances. And I'll just quickly go to that slide. And it's a little bit small, but if we remember and accept these 5 remembrances, then when something happens to us or someone close to us, we are not surprised. We actually appreciate what we have in the moment, and we appreciate the presence of those that are close to us so much more by being aware of these 5 remembrances. And I'm thinking about my father. My father is 101. He's had a good life. He's still very sharp, still goes for a walk every day, but at some point he's going to pass away. So he knows that, we know that. So we've made preparations to deal with that. But for now, he's doing great. So, but these are the 5 things that you really want to be aware of and thinking of, especially when it comes to loved ones and older loved ones. So I think the thing I would point out here is that in number 4, everyone that's dear to you, at some point you will be separated from them, right? Because at some point you'll be ill or you'll pass on. So the 5th point, though, is around your actions. So the one thing that will still remain after you're gone is the consequences of everything that you've done and everything that you've said. So it's something to just be aware of. So I'll come back to breaking the cycle of samsara and doing that through mindfulness meditation. So here, I'm going to use the Zoom whiteboard. It's actually this is the first time I've actually used the whiteboard, and it's not too bad. But I'm going to talk about our 8 consciousnesses, and I'm going to talk about negative and positive seeds. So let me stop this share and go to my Zoom whiteboard. It's actually quite neat. Okay, so I drew this about a couple hours ago, so okay. So every cell in your body has these consciousnesses. And if you think about the fact that you can clone a sheep from a single cell, and that sheep, when it grows up, actually when it's first born, it knows what to do, right? So all of these things are in every cell in your body. So we have things called seeds, bija in Sanskrit, and seeds can be positive or negative. So everything that's ever happened to you, and they come in through the sensory consciousnesses of ear, eye, nose, tongue, and touch. Okay, so if you think about it, your active mind actually doesn't get involved in these kinds of situations where, say, there's a loud bang, right? So you'll immediately put your hands over your ears, like, or you hear a siren of some sort that's very, very loud, right? It's just an automatic reaction. Your mind doesn't think, oh, I'm hearing a loud sound, I think I'm going to cover my ears. You just automatically do it. So that's what we call a sensory consciousness. Same thing applies to your eye. So if you see a very bright light, you're going to close your eyes. You don't think, oh, there's a bright light, I'm going to close my eyes. We do it automatically. Same thing applies to your nose and to your tongue. If you smell something very, very bad, if you taste something very, very bad, if you touch a hot stove, right? You don't think, oh, my finger's on a hot stove, I can feel it's very hot, I'm going to take my finger off. You just do it automatically. So those are what we call sensory consciousnesses, okay? As things happen to you, things that you hear, see, smell, taste, or touch, they create seeds which are put into your store consciousness. And your store consciousness is filled with all these different seeds. So coming back to your ancestors, their seeds, everything that they've said and done, everything that they've experienced, their seeds are passed along to your parents, and your parents pass along those same seeds to you. And that happens genetically. So in these situations then, so if your parents experienced discrimination or abuse, that's actually passed on to you into every single cell in your body as seeds. And we call them negative seeds, right? So all these seeds are stored in your store consciousness. And as you go through your life and have different experiences, all of those experiences are all stored again in your store consciousness, right? So you can think of, say, a parent that was an alcoholic or a grandparent that was alcoholic. Those negative seeds are passed along to you. So you have that seed within you, that propensity to alcoholism, right? So I'm going to talk about the situation where your parent, say your father, abused you as a child. Well, it turns out that his father abused him as a child. So that seed, that negative seed of abuse, that situation, the emotions, the feelings, the sense impressions that happened, they're passed along through genetics to you. So if you think back on the residential school situation here in Canada, if you think back to what happened to the Black Americans, the slave trade, those seeds of what happened to their ancestors, to their grandparents, their parents, they're passed along as negative seeds, and they're passed along to you as the child of those parents and grandparents. So I've talked about 5 sensory consciousnesses. There's a stored consciousness where all the seeds reside. There's your active mind, which is considered a consciousness. And then there's manas. And manas is all your perceptions, your biases, your prejudices, everything that in Western psychology we would call it your ego. So, and the reason I've drawn it as a boundary is that everything that you experience, everything that you recall, comes up through manas. So it's all colored or filtered by your perceptions, your prejudices, your biases. In Western psychology, we would call this your ego. Okay. So what we try to do, whenever you have something happens that brings up a seed of anger within you. So maybe something happened to you in your past, and that you had a person that looked a certain way, and you see somebody that looks similar. So that seed of anger comes up. And what we're trying to do, you also have a positive seed of mindfulness. So what we try to do is we bring up our seed of mindfulness, and we are aware of that negative seed. So with the seed of mindfulness, we're able to really think about how we want to react to that seed, to that seed of anger. And that's what our mindfulness practice is about. So that, first of all, we're aware that we're experiencing an emotion called anger or envy or hate or anxiety. And then when that seed comes up into our active mind, we want to bring up our seed of mindfulness to say, oh, I'm experiencing anger right now. So I'm mindful of that. I'm aware of that. And then we can deal with it in a different manner as opposed to just reacting to it. So I'm going to stop that share and go back to my slides. Okay. So let me continue here. And actually, the thing I should mention, I should have mentioned it when we had the whiteboard, is that we not only pass along negative and positive seeds to our children through genetics, but every interaction that you have with other people, whether it's a positive, good interaction or a negative or bad interaction, that is a seed that you're creating in those individuals' stored consciousness, in their active mind to start with, but also in their stored consciousness. So we continue ourselves through our children, but we also can continue ourselves through the seeds that we implant in other people. So if you think of the case of Thich Nhat Hanh, the Zen Buddhist monk who I was ordained by, he actually lives on through so many people because he's done so many retreats, so many YouTube videos, he's written so many books, he's written so many gathas, that he actually lives on through all of that, the seeds, I would say positive seeds that he's implanted in everyone that's come into contact with him, either personally or through videos, his books, so forth. So, okay, so why do we meditate? We meditate in order to come back to ourselves, to practice how to deal with a difficult situation. So we really want to practice meditation when we get angry or when others get angry. So when that happens, what we do, we can practice mindful breathing. We can just stop. Maybe you don't want to close your eyes, but you can stop and just take a deep breath and practice mindful breathing. If you're in a situation which is very difficult to even be present, you leave the situation and you go for a mindful walk, where you can do mindful breathing, mindful walking. Okay? So meditation is an important part of the mindfulness practice. We become more in touch with our body, our feelings, our emotions, our thoughts, our surroundings. Meditation. It enhances our ability to be mindful throughout our day. And that is the real objective of our meditation, being mindful in every waking moment. I have this in my next slide. Yes. So we meditate to become more mindful in every waking moment. With mindfulness, we are better able to recognize and be aware when certain feelings and emotions arise in us. With that awareness and our ever-increasing knowledge of the Buddhist teachings, what we call the Dharma, we can be calm and think through what we want to say or what we want to do in a stressful situation. We can act, not react to what is happening around us, to us, or to someone else. So mindfulness is the first step in breaking the cycle of suffering or samsara. So through our practice of concentration, and we practice this when we focus on our breath in sitting meditation. So that is one reason why we practice focusing on our breath, so that we actually can understand how to concentrate, right? So when we focus on our step in walking meditation, same thing. But what's important here is not just the practice of mindfulness and meditation. It's actually your knowledge and awareness of the Buddhist teachings, the Dharma. So we may be able to concentrate on the solution to our problem and achieve a breakthrough, an insight, but it usually will be because we remember a Buddhist teaching. So, and what it involves, it will involve having compassion for ourselves or compassion for someone else. So this is how we break the cycle of suffering or samsara. We realize, for example, and that's the example I've been talking about, that our father abuses us because his father abused him. If we realize this insight, then we can have compassion and perhaps forgiveness for your father and break the cycle of suffering, break samsara. Because if you don't realize that, what's likely to happen, because you have the negative seeds from your father, is that you're going to abuse your child, right? So it's actually, when we talk about the cycle is from grandfather to father to son or daughter to your children, right? And what we're trying to do is we're trying to break that cycle of suffering. So it's with meditation to improve your mindfulness in every waking moment, and then your awareness of, I'm experiencing suffering right now, right? But because I brought my seed of mindfulness to be aware that this is what I'm experiencing, and because of my knowledge of the Buddhist teaching around that it's actually the Four Noble Truths, that life is suffering, my father is suffering, and he's making me suffer. And that's how I break the cycle. So I stop it there so that I realize I have compassion for my father, I forgive my father, and I break that cycle. So let me keep going. So through our practice of meditation, mindfulness, concentration, and insight, we can be more in touch with others, their feelings, their emotions, and their thoughts, and help to relieve their problems and their suffering. And it's a big if they are open to our help and support. So somebody that doesn't realize they have a problem, or somebody that doesn't want any help with their problem, then it's probably no point. But because you're able to learn how to resolve your own suffering, deal with your own cycle of suffering, it makes it easier for you to understand how to help others in doing the same thing. So for me, and this is the important part, it's the combination of mindfulness and mindfulness meditation practices and the Buddhist teachings, or Dharma, that we're able to have breakthrough through insights to our suffering or to others' suffering. That means that we need to continuously expand our knowledge and our understanding of the Buddhist teachings. So much so that when we have situations that are creating stress for ourselves or for others, we can remember a Buddhist teaching which applies to the situation at hand, and then say the appropriate words or take the appropriate action. So let me go to So there are quite a few Buddhist teachings. I'm just going to list some of them. I won't read them out. I've already mentioned the 5 remembrances, and I just mentioned the Four Noble Truths. Here's some more. So if some of these are unfamiliar to you, then it's an opportunity to expand your understanding of the Buddhist teachings. So I did want to talk about the 3 levels of Buddhism. So there's the Buddha, I guess the first awakened or enlightened being 2,500 years ago that actually started with the Four Noble Truths and then the Eightfold Path. the Dharma, which is the teachings of the Buddha. And I really use the more general definition of Dharma. Dharma can be anything that you're experiencing, right? So we all experience Dharma every day, things that we learn about ourselves, that we like this or don't like that, things that, oh, I shouldn't do that again. Like that is Dharma. Dharma is your life experience. And Dharma can be shared by anyone. It doesn't have to be me or a monk or the Buddha. Dharma, you're learning Dharma all the time, and you can share that learning with others. But the third jewel is the Sangha. And the Sangha is the group of practitioners that practice together. So I was asking earlier about how many people have meditated before. So it is difficult to meditate on your own, right? And certainly trying to learn about and incorporating the Buddhist teachings is going to be even more difficult. So that is where the value of having a Sangha comes in. Okay, attending regular meditation sessions with your Sangha, establishing rapport, contact with your Sangha. I did a little bit of research, and for Calgary, I came across two Sanghas that actually practice in the Thich Nhat Hanh tradition. So I was going to put those, actually I should add them to the resource sheet, Susan. There's one Sangha is called the Wild Rose Sangha, and the other one's called the Calgary Insight Meditation Society. Very lengthy name, but apparently they both follow the Thich Nhat Hanh tradition. So, and that is the end of my Dharma talk. So I'm going to invite the bell. I guess I should say Ray bowing out. So Ray bowing in. So now we're going to have our Dharma sharing portion of our session. And Dharma sharing guidelines in the Plum Village tradition are meant to create a safe and welcoming environment where we can share openly. Dharma sharing is where we can ask questions within the Sangha or share about our life experience, as I've already mentioned, our own Dharma. So when it's an in-person meditation session, we would normally sit in a circle. So everyone listens and learns from each other, not just from the facilitator. But there are Dharma sharing guidelines that we follow. And let's see if okay. So I just did some of the highlights of the Dharma sharing guidelines. So when we wish to share, we place our palms together, bow and say Ray bowing in. And when we're finished sharing, we place our palms together and bow, say Ray bowing out. So I've already mentioned that, or your name, I mean. So you can ask a question or share a comment or a statement, and we'll wait for the next person to bow in. So Susan, this is where I'm going to end this portion of my screen share. And this is where the opportunity to ask any questions, certainly about my Dharma talk or anything else that has come to mind for you. So I'm going to stop my share and take the spotlight off of me. Okay, so we're going to go into gallery view. Okay, so Susan.
Hey, so thank you, Ray. That was great. We do have Gail put in here, Gail bowing in. I am a returning beginner to Buddhism. Does reincarnation tie into or impact samsara? Gail bowing out.
So Ray bowing in. So it's actually a very good question, and it's actually one of the what I call differentiators between the Thich Nhat Hanh practice and teachings and what I would call traditional Buddhism. So in traditional Buddhism, samsara is actually coming back, being reincarnated or reborn as something other than what you are. So I think there's 6 realms. Let's see, gods, demigods, humans, animals, and hungry ghosts. It's the last one I can think of. I think that's 6. Anyways, so in Thich Nhat Hanh's teachings, there is no birth, no death. So there is no reincarnation, there is no rebirth. In traditional Buddhism, depending on the karma that you generate, if you do good things, you generate good karma. If you do bad things, you generate bad karma. So if you do bad things, you may end up as an animal, or you may end up as a hungry ghost. If you do good things, actually, if you do good things, you'll come back as a human, because only as a human can you attain nirvana, which is breaking outside of the circle of samsara. But samsara is that's traditional Buddhism definition of samsara. In Thich Nhat Hanh teachings, samsara is the cycle of suffering, which I've already mentioned. So I hope that answers your question. There is no rebirth or reincarnation in Thich Nhat Hanh's teachings in Buddhism, because the belief is no birth, no death. Maybe I can elaborate. Saying no birth, no death is that we actually never die because we were never born. Okay, I think if you think of the metaphor of there's a sea of consciousness, and it's at one point we manifest as somebody that's born, and at some point our body will dissipate, but we live on because I have my parents' seeds and my grandparents and my ancestors' seeds. They live on through me, right? My children, my seeds, I will live on through my children, right? Or I will live on through the things that I do and say, as Thich Nhat Hanh has done and said, right? He lives on. I'm an example of Thich Nhat Hanh living on through me, because I'm continuing his teachings, his practices, right? So that's the difference. Okay, I hope that helped answer that question. Ray bowing out. Susan, you're muted.
So, and Gail says thank you. Oh, Gail bowing out.
Oh. So if people want to just unmute and say so and so bowing in, and then ask the question, please do that too. So, but Susan, are there more questions from the chat?
I don't believe there are any more questions from the chat, unless I missed it. I know I had a question, right? So Susan bowing in. What are there any negative effects of mindful meditation?
Ray bowing in. Meditation. Well, you may realize something that you didn't really want to know. So I think in a situation where there is very deep suffering, there is suffering that's taken place with an ancestor that you may not even know, right? But somehow it comes out in you, and you may wonder, like, why am I having that kind of reaction? It may be a situation or a person brings out some sort of very strong negative emotion in yourself, and you can't figure out why am I acting that way? Why am I reacting that way, right? So that would be, for me, something that I can't understand it, but I still have to deal with it. So I don't know if that's something that's negative about it. I think whatever can help us to better handle our suffering, no matter where it comes from, and in that kind of situation where it's from an ancestor that you may even know who it is, you'll never really discover or determine what the actual cause of that suffering was, but you need to learn how to deal with the suffering regardless. So I'm not sure if that's a negative consequence, but to me, the more we can deal with our suffering or with the suffering of others, because once you really have to look after yourself. I always talk about self-care. You're the first person that needs to look after yourself. You're the person that knows this is what's wrong with me, whether it's physically or mentally, right? Only after you've done that and looked after yourself can you really help other people, right? Because if you yourself are not mentally stable and you're trying to help someone else, you think you're going to improve that other person's situation or make it worse. So you really need to practice self-care first. Ray bowing out.
Thank you, Ray. I found that very interesting. Very interesting. Talk about having grandkids.
Oh, that's sweet. Elaine bowing in. I'm wondering if the Southern Alberta Buddhist temple in Lethbridge follows Thich Nhat Hanh's teachings.
Rebounding in. So I'm aware that Calgary Buddhist Temple was having meditation sessions, but that's pretty much all. That was like a couple of years ago, I think pre-pandemic actually. So I think Susan, Susan really would be the person to respond to that. Rebounding out.
And Susan bowing in. I think for Calgary, anyways, I think they have mindfulness, or they have a meditation time in the morning before services, and typically it is more of a time to reflect. And I don't think that they actually follow Thich Nhat Hanh specifically. Susan bowing in. Oh, and I should say I'm not sure about Lethbridge. Sorry. Thank you. Oh. Does anyone else have any questions? Oh,
Victor bowing in.
Yes, Victor.
Ray, do you have any advice in case there is resistance to mindfulness, such as being mindful during everyday activities? Thank you. Victor bowing out.
So Ray bowing in. So I think when you ask about resistance, I'm assuming you're talking about other people as opposed to yourself, because if you're resisting yourself, I guess that wouldn't really work. I don't think we can force anything on people. The only way that people will do something is if they want to do it. So I don't know. I think it's better to lead by example and show the benefits of having a mindfulness practice, a mindfulness meditation practice. I think that's more, how would I say, more inspiring, let's say, or more helpful. If they see how you are in dealing with difficult situations, then they might say that, well, he's handling that very well. Like, how can I do the same? And they might ask you about it. But if you try to, unless the person is open to learning about mindfulness and mindfulness meditation practice, then that's a different situation. But when you say resisting, I'm assuming that they don't really want to learn it. And I would say you really can't force anything, certainly of this type of thing, onto a person. They have to first want to be able to learn. And I think the best way to do that is by leading by example. Ray bowing out.
Victor bowing in. It's actually resistance within myself.
Oh, it is. Okay, sorry.
Yeah, Victor bowing out.
Okay. Sorry, I guess I made the wrong assumption there. Okay, so this is where the Sangha comes in, because if you join a Sangha that practices meditation and you learn about the Buddhist teachings, that starts to develop a habit within you, right? Because as I mentioned earlier, it's difficult to do meditation by yourself unless you're very, very steady, you can establish routines very easily. It's difficult. I'm going to be providing a resource sheet that talks about some different apps that you can use. There's a Plum Village app that I mentioned earlier. I don't know if you were here, but there are apps that are very helpful. They're free, and you can actually say, well, I'd like to do a 10-minute meditation or 15-minute. You can actually pick how long you want to do it for, and it's a good way to start. To me, it's not so important how long you do it, it's how often you do it. If you can do 5 minutes, 10 minutes every day, is a lot better than doing an hour once a week, right? Try to establish that as a habit. I think they say it takes 21 days to establish something on a regular basis, so that's what you should be looking at. Rebounding out.
Great. Actually, I find that really interesting, Ray, that you mentioned that it's better to do it in a group than by yourself. And I always thought when I meditated or tried to meditate that I could concentrate more when I was by myself. I don't know. Is it the sharing part? that probably is more beneficial when it's in a group?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh,
so Ray, yeah, Ray bowing in. What I find is that attending a regular meditation session establishes a routine for you. But as I mentioned, it's not only the mindfulness or not only the meditation part, it's the Buddhist teaching part. So unless you have the initiative or the drive to actually, pick up a Buddhist book of, say, Thich Nhat Hanh, for example, and start reading it and learning about the different gathas and the different teachings, it's easier to do it again in a group, right? Because you can ask questions. It's hard to ask questions of yourself because you're learning it yourself, right? But if you're in a group and you have a good facilitator, then hopefully they can answer the question for you or point you to a resource where the answer can be provided. So to me, it's not just the mindfulness practice, it's the Buddhist teachings. Because in the back of your mind, when I visit my father and I see him every week because he's over in Hamilton, I'm living in Toronto, I'm aware of the five remembrances. At some point, my dad will pass away. He's 101. Like, I'm hoping he lasts another 5-10 years, but I think the oldest male is about 115, I think. So I tell my dad, hey, Dad, the oldest person lived 115. So, but we'll see.
Got a lot more years left.
Yeah, exactly. Ray bowing out.
Great. Awesome. Are there any other questions from the group?
We still have a couple minutes left. So if you have anything that you'd like to ask about the practice, about mindfulness, I guess one thing I should mention, Ray bowing in. One thing I should mention is that you can practice meditation anywhere. Okay. Perhaps not when you're driving your car, but if you're sitting in a bus or a streetcar, on a subway here in Toronto, if you're just sitting back in your backyard or sitting just relaxing, just practice close your eyes and just practice your mindful breathing, come back to yourself, and then just continue on with whatever you were doing. So you can use I think there was one person that mentioned a reminder. You can set a 1 hour reminder that every once every hour, just stop, take a breath, whatever you're doing, just take a breath, close your eyes, and just come back to yourself, refocus, and then continue with whatever you were doing previously. So, Ray bowing out.
Good. Oh, Susan bowing in. If no one else is going to ask questions, I will ask another question. So, you know how you mentioned that about stress, and so I'm wondering, how does mindful meditation alleviate that stress that you might feel in your life? Susan bowing out.
Well, that's what my whole talk was about.
Oh, did I miss that?
No, sorry. So the reason we practice meditation is so that we can improve our mindfulness, come back to ourselves. So I'm more mindful when I'm experiencing a feeling or emotion. And when I'm more mindful, I'm aware that, I'm experiencing anger right now. So I'm going to practice my mindfulness because I'm experiencing anger right now. Why? I'm not going to react. I'm not going to say something to the person because whatever he or she said made me angry. I'm not going to react. I'm going to just close my eyes, if you can, take a breath, think about it, okay? Think about the Buddhist teachings. Life is suffering. This person is suffering from something, right? Is it better for me to say something in anger or say something that helps to calm him, helps to address that person's suffering? What's your better choice? Do you want to get into this back and forth of, what we call an anger spiral where it gets out of control? And at some point, maybe you're hitting each other. Who knows, right? Depends on how bad it is, how bad the situation is. Or do you want to break out of that cycle, break out of that spiral and say something, well, you seem to be really upset right now. Is there something I can do for you? Can I help you somehow? Like, is that the better response to a situation like that or not? Really bowing out.
Elaine bowing in with just a reflection. Your teachings today are really, really poignant. They hit home with me. I wish I would have learned them as a younger person. Yeah, Elaine bowing out.
Thank you, Elaine.
That's lovely. Oh, and Cynthia bowing in. She says, thank you, Ray, for a great presentation. I have to agree. I'm
Thanks,
very
Cynthia.
grateful. Okay.
So unless there's any more questions, it is 5 o'clock. I know it's a bit early, but Susan, did you have any more questions? I think you've asked about half of them. That's okay. They're actually good questions. There's some typical questions that always get asked. One of them is the samsara reincarnation rebirth question. So yeah. But I think the point, sorry, I should have said rebowing it. I think the point of it though is that you want to practice meditation to improve your mindfulness, but you need to also be looking at the Buddhist teachings, because it's being mindful of the Buddhist teachings is going to help you have an insight, have a breakthrough to figure out, this is why I'm having that problem, or this is why he or she is having that problem, because they're suffering, and they're suffering because someone else made them suffer. If you look at the residential school situation, if you look at what's happened to Black Americans, it's the same thing. They've got it passed down from way back in generations, right? So no wonder they have such anger inside of them, right? Same thing with residential schools. So we need to be able to recognize that people are suffering, life is suffering, but there is a path out of suffering. And I guess I think I didn't mention that the 5 mindfulness trainings, which will be in the resource sheet, the 5 mindfulness trainings are Thich Nhat Hanh's embodiment of the Noble Eightfold Path. So if you follow the 5 mindfulness trainings, you are walking the Noble Eightfold Path, and that is the path to enlightenment. That's what the Noble Eightfold Path is, the path to enlightenment, the path to awakening. So when we're born, we have like such a fresh and clear mind, right? But as we get older and we go through a life experience, we start building up layers and layers of suffering and trying to deal with it, right? So the awakening part is to remove that suffering, deal with it, transform the suffering to understand what is causing you so much pain and suffering. So that abuse that you experienced, or the prejudices that you have, the biases that you have, they can be from seeds from your parents, your grandparents, your ancestors, things that have happened to you that you now treat as, well, it's a prejudice or a bias. You may not think it is, but it actually is. There's so much unrealized prejudices and biases that even I can recognize that I have those, and whenever you have a reaction or want to say or do something, you need to be aware of that. That's the manas coming into that. Remember that diagram I showed you about manas? That's the filtering that takes place. That's the negative aspects, the negative seeds within yourself that are coloring how you look at things, right? How you react to things and what you even think of things. So you need to be aware of that. And always check with yourself. Am I right? Am I right? Is this really the case? You need to be questioning yourself all the time, because you have those inherent biases. And they may not even be biases that you yourself have developed. They've been passed from your parents, your grandparents, your ancestors. So, Ray bowing up.
Well, thank you very much, Ray. I sure appreciate this talk today. It was very worthwhile. I'm so glad that you were able to do this presentation for us on behalf of the Calgary Buddhist Temple Sangha Engagement. Thank you so much, Ray. You did not disappoint at all. And on behalf of the temple, thank you all for participating and joining this afternoon. We hope you found it informative and inspiring. Along with an attachment that Ray mentioned he'll be sending out, or I'll send out on his behalf, this resource sheet. As you registered for this workshop, I should have your email address so I can send that off to you. I'll also include this link that I've also put into our chat. If you could take just a couple of minutes to fill in the survey for the workshop today, it would be greatly appreciated. And now, before we all depart, can I please ask everyone to put their hands together in Gasho? We want to show our appreciation for this opportunity to engage and share together as we end today's session with Gasho. Please repeat after me. Namo Amida Butsu.
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 Namo Amida Butsu. Thank you again, everyone, for joining today. It's been wonderful to have you, and it's been wonderful to share this presentation from Ray today. It's a wonderful ability to be able to use Zoom and gather and share with each other. So thank you again. Enjoy the rest of your day, all. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks for attending. You can unmute and say goodbye if you'd like. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. Thank you, Ray.
Thank you.
Thanks, Elaine.
Thank
Have
you
a
so
terrific
much.
Sunday.
Take care.
Thanks, Elaine.